Oh, hello everyone! Welcome to a new video. I'm Marta, aka Obscure Beauty, and happy holidays to everyone! Today I bring you another speed draw, this time of my lovely Eliafor, who clearly seems to be winning over my patrons and, of course, myself. So I had to paint this handsome boy for Christmas. I've been wanting to talk about this picture for several reasons, but also a bit afraid as it touches a point that I'm still fairly embarrassed by. Some people seem to know their style and their way of painting so soon after starting their career, and I just can't seem to settle. And I usually take these fairly well and joke around just how random my drawings are, when in fact it makes me so self-aware of just how little I know of all of this. Anyways, Beautiful Eliafor is one of the main characters of the story I'm very slowly writing and illustrating for my patrons. Without describing the whole story to you and obviously lose the plot of the whole speed painting narrating thing, basically there's two main factions that work together to achieve balance, and very simply they are good forces and evil forces. Both of them necessary, but obviously one that is seen to have better intentions than the other. Eliafor is the ageless leader of said evil forces and sort of lives haunted by his deeds. He's a lonely boy and I wanted to show that less known fact of him on this festivity painting. Don't ask me why, it's just me. Anyways, now back to the painting itself. I wanted to use this painting to try and achieve two different things. First, I wanted to learn how to use color gamut successfully, and secondly, I wanted to try again to use Hardy Fowler's method of painting. For those who don't know me, I'm a huge fan of Hardy Fowler. I started drawing again partially due to his videos, and if there's anyone out there granting wishes this year, please let me be able to paint like him. I guess you can see where my story is going now, right? So let's go through the beginning. Color gamut is meant to be a way of choosing colors for a whole painting without having to deal with complementary or triad colors or whatnot. At the same time, it does use that knowledge, but it allows you to dictate from the very beginning the mood of the picture and paint with colors that suit that mood straight away, instead of just using the original true colors and then having to use the color balance or overlay layers to make the whole painting fit together. Color gamut offers you straight away a range of colors, and as they will never be all the colors in the world, you are forced to make choices, such as if you are doing a cool palette setting and have blues as the main tone. If there's something yellow on the painting, it will probably have to be painted as a warm grey. And in fact, that grey in the middle of all the blues will appear yellow. Color is very subjective, and for more on that matter, because I'm clearly not an expert, I advise you to watch Marco Bucci's videos or check out James Gurney's videos or books. Links will be on the top and description below. Enjoy, they are so much better than me. I wanted a cool color scheme, sort of sad and wintry with lots of violets to paint his skin nice and bright. And if you check any of Hardy Fowler's videos, you know he approaches the paintings by laying down a dark tone that will be the darkest shadow, and then use the thing's colors on top to slowly build the objects. I think usually people are more used to go from light to dark, or at the very least to go from a mid-tone and separately work with shadows and lights. In a sense, his method is really simple and he definitely makes it look easy and fast, but I find it in fact so challenging to start from shadows. As you can see, I was not happy with the original rendering that I did of his body, so I deleted the layer and started again. I also forgot about his method at one point and decided to paint the flats for the horns and hat, besides the hair. The idea was that the darkest hair strand would never be as the original greenish blue, but the same cannot be told of the hat and horns, so it just reflects how used I am to that mid-tone painting cutaway. The second time I rendered the skin, I didn't want to focus in a light source, and I just did it as if my eyes were the main light source, and that allowed me to actually perceive the shape a bit better than by following the original reference for the painting. Also, this painting was meant to be divided in two, a safe for work version to share on social media and the not safe for work version to share on my Patreon Carnival Circus community. But as this is YouTube, you just get to see his wholesome top body, okay? Nothing to see down there, friends. After rendering the body and thinking I had the worst tackle down, I tried to do what Hardy Fowler usually does, which is coloring underneath the rendering layer with some warmer tones to indicate skin color. the result was not impressive. So I messed around with curves and color balance and everything else in between so I could start doing the lighting in a different layer. Obviously, from this point I decided I could not follow Hardy Follows methods, and I just went with what I usually do, which is heavily inspired by how Mark Burnett paints. Usually, his idea is to shade the character in a fairly nondescript way, either using ambient occlusion shading or shading as if you are the light source, or a mix between those two methods. And then by darkening the whole painting and adding the lights, you can then make different variations of the painting itself, and it should potentially look as good as if you had considered it from the beginning. Because I initially wanted to make the two versions of this painting, I had double the trouble, and in the end I got so tired I actually never finished the not for safe work version. And although I failed miserably with the skin, I went back to Hardy Fowler's method to do the hair and just basically added strands of hair with a low opacity brush and just kept repeating the process until the whites were almost white. I then decided that the original blue was way too light and added some extra shadows with a multiply layer. Lastly, I went around with a smudge brush to try and remove that flat look of the hair and give it a bit more fluffiness. I also added lots of light on top of the hair, as it's thin and it lets a lot of light pass through it, and technically it is next to a window, so there's, lots of light. By this time, I was really tired of this picture and started working a little bit more erratically. I started working with the horns and I wasn't achieving what I wanted, so I used the photo as a base on a soft light mode and then colored and shaded on top. Then I went for the hat and painted again the dark bluish green so I could color just the folds on top. The red was a very muted red as per the color gamut mask I used, but it still stands out because it's the only red in the picture. Next, I watched a few fur tutorials and went ahead with adding some fluffiness to the hat. It's probably my favorite part of the whole painting and it makes me want to wear it as well. After the hat, I colored the mug with his favorite hot chocolate. He is a bit of a connoisseur in terms of chocolate and culinary in general, as he prepares to celebrate his solitary Christmas. Lastly, not lastly, as I still need to do the background, but obviously I had to leave the wings to the end after all that trouble with the skin, and clearly didn't want to do the same mistake here, so I started straight away with something I'm more used to. I painted the wings on a medium tone and started adding the shading in black on a multiply layer. After that, I played with some textures to add, because at this point I really just wanted to finish the painting, and if only I knew how far off I was. With some pinkish red colors, I added what I thought it would be sufficient red blood flow on the wings, and also what I thought it would be the subsurface scattering color of the light passing through the wings. Blended them a bit better with the skin, and moved on to the background thinking I was nearly there. I wanted some gothic windows, and despite having high hopes in the beginning that I would paint them from scratch, I clearly had lost my patience there and did the same thing that I did with the horns. I added a picture on soft mode layer, adjusted and painted on top, and I did the same with the forest outside. To be honest though, in the end you barely even see the original, if you see it at all. As you can see, painting the snow was probably the funniest thing I felt in a while after starting this painting, with clearly too high expectations. I think that's my issue. Is it yours too? I tend to have really high expectations for my art and end up being disappointed over and over. Anyways, after playing with the values a bit, I decided to add some more light through the hairs and some real light around his body. I thought it was done, and I asked some critique to fellow artists and friends, and then I realized just how far off I was from actually finishing. It makes sense that if you have a strong light, you will also have a strong shadow. So I started by doing exactly that, and tried not to forget there were also two wings coming out of his back. That would definitely make some cast shadows and occlusion shadows. I went full blown on adding more contrast, and I also increased the light values and tried my best to leave some hard edges because, I tend to smudge everything way too much. At this point, I got angry with the color gamut and decided to make a mess out of the colors I chose initially and repainted the hat and the horn. Then I went through the terrible experience of failing miserably at trying to add subsurface scattering lights through the bat-like wings. The idea being achieving this, but I just made a mess of myself again. Added more light, then more texture, then more shadows, then I watched Marco Bucci's videos and decided to get smart and just play around with textures all around the corners so that Eliaph's handsome face would be the focus of the painting. I also tried to merge shadow groups together and in general tried to make the whole painting a bit more painterly. In the end, I decided the subsurface scattering still wasn't good enough and point blank added more pink in there without any shame in the world. After one last play with color balance and curves, I called this piece done and never looked at it again, or so I thought. But as it is my only Christmassy painting I've made this month, I also had to transform it and make it into physical items I could ship to my family, friends and supporters to thank them for believing on me probably more than I do so myself. And nothing is as nice as knowing that there are some people out there that believe in me enough to actually pay me for my work or to support me, no matter how messy and how low in confidence I actually am. That's the best gift I could ever ask for Christmas. So thank you so much for your support, and I wish you all to find that same gift of having people who believe in you and trust in you no matter what your goal is. Unless you're like an assassin or something really shady, and I'm sorry about that. And that said, Merry Christmas to you all. Bye bye.